Only Murders in the Building, Season 5.
The hit Hulu original is back.
The night Lester died, he was talking with this mobster.
Was he killed in a hit?
We need to go face to face with the mob.
Get ready for a season
Buongiorno, signore.
Oh, this is how I die.
you can't refuse.
You're gonna save the day, like you always do, by being smart, sharp, and almost always by mistake.
The Hulu original series, Only Murders in the Building, premieres September 9. Streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply. New episodes Tuesdays.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk, well, I know I'm gonna be.
Oklahoma escapes Auburn by a touchdown. 24-17 was that final on Saturday as the Sooners start 1-0 in SEC conference play, 4-0 on the season. Just the second time Brent Venables has started 4-0, the first time since 2023. So all good news on the Sooner front as of right now. Jackson Arnold, I've got some thoughts on him that maybe we'll get into, but let's start with you, Caleb. Give me, by the way, everybody, welcome to the Sooner Nation podcast. Now, Caleb, give me one thought on Saturday's game with Oklahoma walking out with the win.
I think the Oklahoma defense proved that they are the best defense in the country Saturday night. 10 sacks. I don't know exactly how many rushing yards Auburn ended up with, but I know at one point it was in the negatives for a majority of that game. This defense has just continued to step up week in and week out.
Yeah, they had the long run by Cobb, which is, 2 games. The last 2 games at Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, they've given up a long run, but also 2 talented running backs. I think that put them like 76 yards. I'm just going by looking at the box score from memory, like 76 yards. But that long run from Cobb was a lot of it. I do know Jackson Arnold finished with negative rushing yards, but yeah, I mean that defensive performance pretty spectacular. Anything else? I mean, I don't want to. I have this habit of cutting people off because my thoughts just come out. But what's up? What else you got?
I mean, you told me one thought, but if you want me to give another thought, the run game for Oklahoma has to get better. And that's just one thing that, it hasn't through 4 games. We haven't seen much. 35 total rushing yards is just not going to cut it.
No, I agree with you completely on that. And yeah, it's one thought, but you can give me 2 thoughts. I just didn't know if I was interrupting your initial thought. But yeah, the running game it's just got to get better. But again, we were texting a little bit through the game yesterday, and I kept saying it's a good defensive front. I mean, they are talented, and it's a defensive front that you had even said was better than Michigan when we did our Thursday show to preview this game. And so to one extent, I agree with you. They've got to run the ball better. But the other extent, you've got to give your opponent some credit for being who we said they were going to be going into that game. And we can maybe get more into that later on down in our podcast lineup tonight. But here's my thought on the game. My one thought is that I walked away encouraged, incredibly encouraged. There was a big smile on my face because Oklahoma, we talked about it on Thursday night. We talked about the importance of this game, 4-0. And Oklahoma did everything that they needed to do in order to lose this game, right? You got the highest amount of penalty yards and penalties for the season. You've got the continued turnover problem. And yet they still were able to beat a top 25 program. And we did say this yesterday, zero chance last year's team wins this game, right?
100%. I even was a little scarred when Auburn goes down, takes that 17-16 lead.
Yeah.
Based off of what we saw all of last year, I was like, it's over. That our offense is not capable of going down and getting a touchdown. And it was one of the best looking drives we've had all night, just an easy downfield drive, and with the basically material almost goes in untouched, doesn't get touched until about the 2 yard line. It can just fall forward into the end zone. And so it's to me that proved that this offense is capable of, hey, we need you to go win us this game, and they're like, okay, we can do that for you.
Yeah, and that drive, and I don't know. I mean, and if you look at our social media, if you go to the Facebook page, by the way, quick take here. We're almost to 14,000 followers on the Facebook page. Huge thanks to everyone who jumps in and participates on that. We've got links to our articles from the website. We've got reels on there. Most importantly, we've got your comments and your conversations on the Facebook page, Heartland Sports on Facebook. But, I've got a lot on there about R. Mason Thomas and just how coming back in the second half, how incredible he was. I don't think we talk enough about John Mateer on that final drive. Only one incomplete pass and then the game-winning touchdown. We talked about the Heisman moments, right? And we talked about the escape against Michigan when he was able to roll out to the right and get the ball downfield to Satina. And then that drive, that was a Heisman-type drive that we haven't seen. We haven't seen that type of performance since, I would say Dylan Gabriel against Texas was probably the last time we saw that type of composure on a game-winning drive. So I think the coming away from it, there's a lot to be frustrated about. But this Auburn team was who we said they were coming into the game, then there's a lot to be happy about. And I guess next Saturday when Oklahoma's off, Auburn's playing Texas A&M. That's going to tell us a lot more about the team we just beat. But what I want to do now is I want to go back. We did this last Sunday as well, and I thought it was a lot of fun. And I want to go back and look at what we said pregame and just kind of revisit that postgame and see if we were right, if we were wrong, or were we panicking? What was the deal? And so we start with what I was worried about. And what I said I was worried about going into the game was the turnover situation. And I know even today, Caleb, we've had a text exchange in our group chat. This blows my mind. It blows my mind how Oklahoma absolutely cannot get a turnover. And as good as this defense is, and the crazy stat is they've only given up like 6 or 9 points off of the turnovers that they've committed this season, but they've committed a turnover in every single game. And man, they're there. They were just literally gift wrapped on Saturday. Peyton Bowen had a clean shot at an interception. Probably won't get a better chance. And there were multiple shots like that. Daniels had a shot, didn't get it. And you at some point, man, you just got to think, is this team cursed? But the turnover problem did not, that fear, that concern of mine is not any better after Saturday. What about you?
I can't remember what I put down for I was concerned. I think it was the running game, wasn't it?
Probably, yeah. I think that was right. I should have maybe done more homework and gone back and actually listened to that part of the podcast.
But the running game, 35. If you would have told me Oklahoma only rushed for 35 yards, I would be like, yeah, we lost this game. But I mean, we did it. It was a close game. But this running game we have to be able to find that identity. I get that we're still trying to work back to a healthy offensive line. We played against, one of the best defensive lines in the country, but still just being able to get more than 35 rushing yards is something that OU is going to have to do if they want to continue to make this run to the playoffs. If they want to make it to Atlanta, 35 rushing yard has to be. You just can't just have that.
No, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. And the good news is you got a bye week, you got Kent State, and then you got Texas, which, oh, by the way, another good, really solid defensive front. So you've got to get it figured out. And I had set the Texas game as kind of my make or break point with my opinion on Jaden Ott. I will tell you right now, my opinion on Jaden Ott is not positive, but I'm reserving official judgment until the Texas game. But you're absolutely right. I mean, they've got to get better. Um, they've just got to get better. And I will move into true or false because revisiting that from Thursday night, because my very first true or false question was, even without Troy Everett at center and with R. Mason Thomas missing the first half, Oklahoma's offensive and defensive fronts will hold up against Auburn. Well, it was very true for the defensive side. I think there were 6 or 7 sacks in the first half. So the defensive side definitely held up their end of the bargain. Offensive line could not create space for Blaylock. Um, I don't know, man. I just don't know if it's concepts. I don't think it's concepts. I think it's execution, and the execution is just not there, right?
Yeah, and I feel like a part of it is just the running backs, even the receivers, just not identifying the holes. I
Yeah.
think it was Santanga who had one of those jet sweeps, and
Burks.
I think that the one I'm thinking about is Santega. He
Okay.
had a he just simply outran his O line. Like if he would
Oh,
have
gotcha. Yeah.
taken it maybe a half a second late, there's a huge hole there, but he's just running in front of the offensive line instead of behind them. And that's kind of been the big issue with Javante Barnes is he hasn't been able to identify the holes and hit the holes. Blaylock, he kind of just puts his head down and makes space.
Hmm.
But yes, I mean, it's a little bit of both. The offensive line did not create much space last night, and there were some space that were just simply missed.
Sidebar: I will say this for Javante Barnes, he didn't really log any significant moments in terms of carrying the football, but he totally erased the guy rushing against John Mateer. Did you see
And
that play? Like this guy came crashing down the middle, and Javante Barnes just
and the worst part of
eliminated
it,
him, literally.
I'm pretty sure it just ended up being like a Mateer just throwing it away. Like the play, his play was
Yeah.
basically for nothing.
But here's something crazy. Looking through this, kind of getting my second time through this game. The craziest thing is this, and maybe you know this. We talked about, and I agree. I think we both agree. This was a very good defensive front. And this defensive front played a role in Oklahoma's inability to run the football. But that said, do you know how many times John Mateer was sacked on Saturday?
Was it only once?
Only one time. Only one time did he go down. And some of that is just because he's that good, but some of that is the offensive line that they can pass block. And you played that position. I was always under the impression that pass blocking is more difficult than run blocking.
It is. Especially with run blocking, you kind of taking the aggression to them. With pass blocking, you
Mm-hmm.
got to kind of let them have the aggression come towards you. But also, if you look at it, Auburn kind of wanted us to beat them through the air. And that's one thing I was kind of complaining about is we never really saw us try to take those deep shots. And I just
Yeah.
don't know what exactly the reason was.
It was
If
coverage. I mean, I can tell you the
cover,
reason. It was coverage. Yeah, and look at when things changed in the second half, and you look at the yardage first half, the second half. What I thought is a great adjustment by Ben Arbuckle is they started throwing underneath. So you're rushing pressure, you're taking away the deep, and when look at the underneath routes, the 5-7 yard routes they threw in the second half, and that was Ben Arbuckle saying, okay, I'm just going to take what you'll give me then, and I'll beat you that way. So, but it was totally coverage on the deep shots, in my opinion.
and the thing is that the reason why I wasn't fully sold on it, the coverage is if you look at the drive to end the first half, we had a couple good deep throws. One gets erased by a questionable pick call. And then the last drive, two great deep balls in a row to kind of set us up for that game, the go ahead touchdown.
Yeah.
I just that's what makes me not really too sure if it was just coverage or is it just Arbuckle trying to play a little bit more passive and kind of seeing what he can get away with, like the least amount he can do to get away with a win.
I think the first half. Here's what I think. I think defensively, Auburn played this the same way they played Baylor. But I don't think Oklahoma executed an offensive game plan like Baylor did until the second half. And then we talked about the tight end for Baylor and what a big game he had. And Kanak had a more 60 plus yards again, another big game plus a ninja kick. But I think it was really the second half when they're like, okay, we'll just do what Baylor did. We'll go underneath and then let our guys stretch it. And I applaud him for making that adjustment, because a lot of guys look at that as that's a win for the defense. And in some ways it is, because if you can throw your opponent off what they want to do, then usually you have an advantage. But I think they threw Oklahoma off from what they wanted to do. And then Oklahoma was going to say, okay, well, we'll take what you do want us to do and we'll still beat you. And I think that's a win for Oklahoma. That's the way I interpret it. I've seen it twice now. And that's what I'm sticking with on my official analysis here. Let's talk about Jackson Arnold, because that was, first of all, we were split. I mean, we were right about the defensive line holding up. We were wrong, I think, because of the inability to run the football. I'm going to go ahead and say that we were wrong about the offensive line holding up, despite the fact that only one sack allowed. Jackson Arnold, our second true or false question was, Jackson Arnold has shown efficiency and improvement, but Oklahoma's defensive schemes will force him into mistakes. And I think you look at no turnovers and you think, well, this was wrong. We didn't do that. But the reality is Oklahoma absolutely did that. Oklahoma absolutely did that. They forced Jackson Arnold into mucho mistakes. And here's how you know this. Somehow the sack total has adjusted down from 10 to 9. But Caleb, look at the sacks and count the seconds. You're an offensive lineman. How many seconds do you want your quarterback to hold the football?
They say 3 to 3.5.
Right. Think about the R. Mason Thomas sack to start the third quarter. He came way, way, way back from the edge, ran around the offensive lineman, and then came from the backside of Jackson Arnold. And Jackson Arnold's not even in a throwing motion, which is good for Jackson Arnold, because that's one of those moments, if he's in a throwing motion, he totally fumbles that football. But he's not even ready. He's not even cocked and loaded to throw the football. Jackson Arnold, and I know we gave Gilroy a lot of grief on social media and in private text messages and so forth. If you watch that game, you were not happy with Cortland Gilroy and the way he played. But I have a different take on that as well. There were so many times where Arnold didn't have a guy, and you could just tell by body language, he did not want to run the football. He did not want to cross the line of scrimmage, because think about what Grayson Halton did to him in that last drive. That was the plan. That dude steps forward, you eliminate him. And so he held the ball way too long on almost every single sack. There were not very many sacks where Oklahoma's rushers are there within 3 seconds. There were a few, but a lot of those sacks came from Jackson Arnold. Even the safety at the end, he holds that ball way too long because he didn't know what to do. He didn't know where to pull the trigger. And so I say this, we said true, and I say we're right. Nope, didn't turn it over. He had the chance. The reason Oklahoma didn't get a turnover wasn't because of Jackson Arnold. It's just because they literally don't know how to get a turnover. But the ball was in Peyton Bowen's hands. The ball was in Kendall Daniels' hands. And then you had 9 sacks. Oklahoma totally forced him into mistakes. That's my take. I'd love to hear yours.
100%. And not only taking a step away from holding the ball too long, but you saw it 2 or 3 times where he had a wide open guy and he simply either held the ball down to try to get out of the pocket, or he simply just threw the ball as quickly as he could because of the pressure. So yes, Jackson Arnold made mistakes because of this defense. And I do want to give him props, because on that R. Mason, the first R. Mason sack, I even said in our group chat, I'm like, that is a ball he fumbles 10 out of 10 times last year.
But I agree. That's what I'm saying. But if he's ready to throw, if he's in the locked position, the ball comes out. But he's not there. I mean, and that's an adjustment that he's made to help limit those fumbles. But still, man, he's not there. And I agree with you. I applaud the toughness of Jackson Arnold because I mean he was a warrior. He took shot after shot after shot. And yet, there at the very end, he's got the ball in his hands, trying to find a way to wheel his team to victory. And so, I applaud him. Oklahoma clearly won the breakup, because they got the last laugh. Unfortunately, I think we're going to see Jackson Arnold again next year in Auburn, based on how the schedule shakes out. I don't know what that schedule is, but if OU does play Auburn again in 26, Jackson Arnold's probably still going to be the quarterback. But he did make improvement. I mean, again, marked improvement. But still not enough. And still, I look at don't just take my word for it. Go listen to what the Auburn fans are saying and about this. They're not happy with Jackson Arnold right now. But they're more not happy with SEC officiating. If we have time, we'll get into that. All right, here's the third one, Caleb. Given Oklahoma's depth and the way Brent Venables emphasizes fundamentals and toughness, this game was more about which team maintains discipline, avoiding penalties, turnovers, and false starts, rather than the one who has more firepower. I said true. I think you said true, but really it was not. This was about star power because Oklahoma did everything. Oklahoma had the penalties. Oklahoma had the turnovers. And the false starts, those were more on Auburn, and I think we got to give the crowd a lot of credit for that. You've got an offensive line that's playing scared, and then you've got the crowd noise. And so I think the crowd played a lot into Auburn's false start penalties. But Oklahoma did two of these three things and still came out with the win. And I think it's because at the end of the day, Oklahoma has better talent. What are your thoughts?
I kind of agree. But if you look at number 77 for Auburn's offensive line,
you talking about the final play?
I'm not talking about the final play. I'm talking about after the first quarter, even especially in the second half, he didn't want to be out there anymore. I mean, I think there was one drive, he had a false start, a holding, and then a false start. And then you go to the final drive, he has the false start that backs them up. He gives up the sack to Halton, and then he's part of that sack with R. Mason Thomas. That dude did not want to be out there anymore, and that's because of I think the depth. You get rid of R. Mason, you have Danny Okoye in there, you have PJ Artabare in there. Number 77 for Auburn he did not have a fun night. Auburn fans are angry at Jackson Arnold. I feel like a lot more of their anger needs to be pointed towards this kid.
No, I agree. And the reason why I asked you if you're talking about the final play or the final drive is because I think it was the Grayson Halton sack where he didn't touch anybody on that play.
He
snapped, and he just literally stood there and watched Jackson Arnold take it to the teeth.
He put his arms out to try to stop Halton, but yeah, he kind of just stood there and was like, "Oh, hey, look."
Yeah. Yeah, but that I think that validates what I'm saying. It was star power that won this game for Oklahoma. The Sooners had the better roster, and that allowed them to overcome the mistakes with the turnover, the mistakes with the penalties. And I didn't think it would be that way. It did. Oklahoma won this game not because they were the cleanest team on the field. They won this game because they were the most talented team on the field. That's what I'm saying.
I can get behind. Yeah, I can get behind that.
And I know I am going to claim something here because I look at a turnover on downs as a turnover, but it's special teams that's getting it, not necessarily the defense. You know what I'm saying? Because you look at the botched punt and Oklahoma gets the ball right there. That's a turnover on downs technically. So maybe you can say it was a turnover. I think we'll come back to that later on. We do have over-under. You had some things on the over-under, and we're going to get into that next. This is the Sooner Nation podcast dissecting Oklahoma's 24-17 win over the Auburn Tigers.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, You try to be in control of how your info is protected, but many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
This is Marshawn Lynch. On Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. So I'm here to make sure you don't miss any of the action this football season. With Prize Picks, it's good to be right. With millions of members and billions of dollars awarded in winnings, Prize Picks is the best place to put your takes to the test. The app is really simple to use and available in 40 plus states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Just pick 2 or more players across any sport. Pick more or less on their projections, and if you're right, you can cash in. With simple stats and fan-friendly policies, Prize Picks is the best place to make your picks. Most importantly, they don't play about your paper. All transactions on the apps are fast, safe, and secure.
Download the Prize Picks app today and use code SPOTIFY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code SPOTIFY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
So, Caleb, as we look back on what we said, our predictions before this game, you had 3 over-under questions. The first one was over under 150 yards team rushing for the Sooners. I said, same thing I said against Michigan, 150 has got to be the floor. And so I took the over, and just like Michigan, I was wrong. And just like Michigan, Oklahoma still won.
Yeah,
tell me what you had on that. I'm just asking your thought.
I kind of expected a lot more from the running game than what was thrown out there. 11 carries for 13 yards from Blaylock. Shocking. Yeah. Only 1 carry for Barnes. And then the rest was John Mateer. I mean, and then you had 2. You had 1 to Burks and 1 to Isaiah Satanga. Just not a lot of carries out there to get many yards, but 24 carries for 35 yards is not great. That's a 1.5 yard average. So, but what blows my mind is that we're still able to be competitive in these games and win these games, and it's because of how good John Mateer is. I mean, 271 yards, 24 for 36 and a touchdown. I mean, that's just something. Look back to last year when we had those games where we couldn't run the ball. We also couldn't throw the ball. So the offense just couldn't do anything. And John Mateer has brought a new level to this Oklahoma offense that simply was not there last year.
You've got a playmaker. You've got a playmaker at quarterback. And you haven't had that since Dillon Gabriel. And I think John Mateer is a better playmaker than what DG was. And I was higher on Dillon Gabriel than – do you remember all the fans just begging for Jackson Arnold to play over Dillon Gabriel?
Yeah.
I mean, but I was higher on Dillon Gabriel. I thought him – when Jeff Lebby left and Dillon Gabriel left, I didn't – if you remember, after that Alamo Bowl performance, when Jackson Arnold just was like, hey, you guys – Arizona, you guys want to play at the football for a while because I've held it for 3 seconds. Now it's your turn. Just kept turning it over. I was worried going into the last season. And I took heat for being worried going into the last season. But I think what you see from Mateer in mental toughness and leadership, it bleeds into when he goes to make that play, when he goes to extend something. Those guys want to fight for him even more than they did for Dillon Gabriel. And they wanted to fight for Dillon Gabriel. And so I think you do that. To me, the biggest comparison between John Mateer and Baker Mayfield is in leadership. These guys will rally around John Mateer the same way we saw guys rally around Baker. And I know we can make stylistic similarities between the two, but the reality is I think the biggest compliment to John Mateer and the biggest connection to Baker Mayfield is the way he leads these guys. But yeah, I still all that said, Oklahoma's got to figure out the running game, right?
100%. And I don't know if it's just bringing in a special package, having Kanak line up as a fullback for an extra blocker. I think that'd be a fantastic idea. Arbuckle, if you happen to be listening, put Kanak in the backfield. Use him more, please. But
Call
yeah,
it the Caleb package since you
Caleb
had the
package.
idea.
I love it. I'm gonna send him an email tonight. But yeah, the rushing attack has to be better moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of Jaron Kanak, over under you set for touchdowns at half, meaning he needed just to get one touchdown. My man has yet to find the end zone. And here's the thing: I don't know if this question is going to come back to me or not because you do over under. The next time we see it, I'm saying under. I just feel like I'm cursing him. Now we should have had an over under on ninja kicks, but I mean 60 plus yards receiving again, a big day for Kanak. Just can't find the end zone.
Yeah, and it's just like to me, it's shocking how little he was used in this game.
Mm-hmm.
I get he has 62 yards, but I mean, four receptions. Isaiah Satanga leads the way with 9 receptions, 127 yards. And I expected Kanak to be used more in this game, and he wasn't. I don't know why that was, but it's coming. His touchdown is gonna come sooner or later.
I just telling you, man. I'm from now on. I'm going to try reverse psychology and say no touchdowns. Um, so I'm going to get technical on you for a second, if you'll allow me to. Can I get technical?
Absolutely.
All right. So we were wrong about Jaron Kanak and touchdowns. I think we were wrong. Well, we definitely were wrong about rushing yards. You set the over under on total game turnovers at 2.5, and we needed to get to 3. So I'm just gonna offer a solution, and you tell me if it works or if it doesn't work. Oklahoma clearly has the fumble. John Mateer fumbles it on the exchange. There's one. The botched punt. That's a turnover. That's a turnover on downs. If you look at the official scorecard, it'll say that drive ended with a turnover on downs. That's the least arguable one. So that gives us 2. I think the safety is a turnover. So that gives us 3. Can we roll with that, or is that stretching too much?
I think that's stretching too much. I will give you the turnover on downs, but I kind of could see where you're going with that. So I just did a quick Google search. Is safety a turnover? And Google says no, safety is not a turnover in football.
But so, what down? What down was the safety on?
I still think it's not a turnover.
Come on, Caleb. You're going to make us go 0 for 3.
I'm going to make us go 0 for 3. Well, technically, I almost said Billy. Peyton Bowen and Kendall Daniels made us go 0 for 3 because they both had an interception in their hands, and they simply could not hold on to it.
That's fair.
Yeah,
all right, thanks for crushing my dreams. I really thought hard about that argument. I mean, I had spent time this afternoon trying to figure out how I cannot be over here on the over-under. Just like my Friday locks. I was over. It was a bad weekend of picks for me. Okay, so here's my question then. Oklahoma wins 24-17. And when we got to the power rankings part of our podcast last week, we talked about the teams that we have in front of Oklahoma. Both of us only had one team in front of Oklahoma. But you did say that a good performance by Oklahoma, based on what everything else happened, that you might be tempted to move Oklahoma to number 1 in the SEC in your power rankings for this week. Now, I would never ask you to give away your power rankings in advance because they come out on Tuesday for the SEC. So don't tell me everything. But is that still a factor? Are you still maybe considering Oklahoma number 1 after they beat Auburn? Or is it, even though Georgia was idle, the Dogs stay number 1?
I said if it was a blowout, and it was not a blowout, maybe if the offense looked a little bit more crisp, I could have talked myself into it. But I think they're probably going to stay where they're at this week at number 2.
I think that's completely fair. I think that's where I'll just say right now, I'm ranking them at number two. I did not see enough to put them in front of Georgia. That win at Tennessee still remains as the best win by an SEC team to this point. Score predictions, I predicted 28-17. You had 27-17. You were off by 3 points. I was off by 4 points. The statement I'm making is this: like it was we both picked Auburn to score 17. I missed Oklahoma's production by 4. You missed it by 3, collectively by a touchdown. This game was in the ballpark of what we expected. So that's why I'm saying at the very beginning, man, I'm just walking away encouraged by what I saw, because I said, I would be satisfied on Saturday if Oklahoma wins. I don't care how they do it, as long as they win. And that's exactly what they did. You go into the bye week now, you have a chance to try to get some guys healthy. On the flip side of that, we may see Eli Bowen. On the flip side of that, you may see Jaden Ott. I don't know some of these other guys that may come back on the flip side of this bye week, but they could offensively get more dangerous. They could defensively get more stout. But you just had to get to this point 4-0, and that's what they did. And so I'm completely satisfied with Saturday. Tell me where you are on this.
No, I completely agree. We both said I'll be satisfied if we win, and that's kind of, I feel like it's gonna be the expectation for a while. But they showed toughness, they showed grit, and like you said, this team is they're gonna get playmakers back. Eli Bowen was off the injury report for Saturday. He's only going to make this secondary room better. We want to give – I get it. Gilroy did not have the best game, but he also was covering arguably the best receiver in college football. Coleman is not –
Cam Coleman, yes, he is an elite receiver, and I kept trying to say that to people during the game.
He's not just a average Joe receiver. He is an elite receiver. You talk about I think it's Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, and then Ryan Williams from Alabama. The only reason why Cam Coleman is not elevated to that level is just because he's on a team that was not as good as those two teams last year. Cam Coleman, you take him out of that game, Auburn struggles heavily. And, you saw that, they threw it up to, don't know exactly who it was. I think it was, might have been Singleton, and the same contested 50-50 ball that Coleman made time and time again that night, nothing happened. And you look at it, yes, Cam Coleman only had 3 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown. And that goes back to what you said earlier. I know we're backtracking, but you got to give Gilroy some credit because he is a true freshman going against an All-American. But yes, being satisfied with this win because of how we won, because they did not give up, and because this offense showed that, hey, we're behind, we got to go out there and do this, and they did that.
All right, Caleb, 30 seconds, man. Rail on the officiating. Just let it out. Just let it go.
You can say what you want by the officiating. A lot of people talk about the Santanga fumble. If he makes the catch, there's clear angles where his butt is down before the ball starts moving. So it would have been a completed catch for Oklahoma. Talk all you want about they deceived us. What? There was no huddle. There was no motion for him to be subbed off. He did not wave like, hey, I need a breather. We did not run somebody on the field and back off the field. He just went over to where he was supposed to line up, pointed to the official. The official gave them thumbs up, and that was it. What is he supposed to do? Hey, wave at Auburn sideline. Hey, I'm over here, by the way. And
someone please come cover me.
Hugh Freeze, I called the timeout. You can see clear as day him yelling at his defense to go over there, but you never once you see him do a timeout until the ball is snapped.
That's such a great. I love that you brought that up because that's so many people miss that because video evidence doesn't lie.
The thing is, it kind of aggravates me a lot that statement was made because if you look at the ruling that the SEC gave us, it has the sub rules about substitution. And Oklahoma did not do one thing that aligned with saying, hey, we are substituting.
Yeah, and I love that the Oklahoma went back after the SEC and said, yeah, sorry, you're wrong on this. Hey, that's going to wrap it up. No podcast to preview a game because the Sooners are on the bye this weekend, but we'll have plenty of stuff at the website. And thanks for hanging out with us. Have a great week, everybody. Boomer Sooner.
I'm gonna be the man